demanding, and I would say a bit obsessive. Some brides are just completely full of themselves.
Oh, yeah. And these bachelorette parties, they are out of control. It's like Bridezilla Gone Wild.
And this is Chick2Chick. Been a decade or so since I experienced my own bachelorette party and showers. And you know what? I mean, once you did that and you had the shower, you had the wedding, and that's it.
Yeah.
Now it's insane. You've got an entire itinerary and so much money spent.
Out of control. Yeah, I got married a whole lot many years ago. And the bachelorette party was one night.
Yeah.
Now it's the bachelorette trip, and it goes on for 4 days, 5 days.
40 days and 40 nights.
And they're going to these extravagant locations, which in my mind, like, then what's the honeymoon for? I don't understand
We know what the honeymoon's for.
Okay. They even have a name for it. They're calling it the last fling before the ring.
It's terrible.
And I'm calling it Bridezilla Gone Wild. What is going on?
Calling it ridiculous.
It's out of control. Which brings us to our guest today, Melissa Miller. You have gone on so many of these bachelorette trips. Melissa, what the heck's going on? What is the deal? Why isn't it one night, which is what we used to, and now it's got to be like a whole trip? What's up with that?
I think you're right. I think that things have become of this party and this concept that it's the last fling before the ring, like you said, which seems actually kind of a little scary and inappropriate when you think of what is the fling, what is happening. But it has turned into this whole party. And frankly, it can get very expensive, especially when there's weddings and, later on, and then the bridal shower and all of the hair and the makeup and the dress. And it's almost like this last hurrah. How can we, do it so big? But it's like an excuse to party, to let loose, to get away. And I've seen it all. I mean, I've seen some that are, just a winery, and some things that are not as wild and crazy as you said, but I've definitely done it all.
Okay, so go over all of the different places that you have been to, because I feel like you have been a world traveler on bachelorette parties. Where are all the places that you've gone?
I have, because I actually got married myself in 2014. We had a surprise wedding, so I didn't really get a bachelorette. So I had to have a surprise little winery trip. We had a limo. We went to a couple of different wineries. We went to dinner, because I couldn't actually share that I was having a bachelorette, because I couldn't share that I was having a wedding. So I did that locally. I've been to Baltimore, which was more of a local trip as well. It's just an hour and a half away. We did some really fun things with clubs and outside on the water and the boats. But a lot of my friends got married in our late 20s. Now I'm in my late 30s. So I have friends now that are getting married that are in their early 30s. And obviously there's going to be another round. I am divorced. So if I ever get married again, there may be another bachelorette or a real bachelorette, in my future. But I've gone to Vegas. I've gone to Miami. I've gone to, obviously, Baltimore, like I said, local. But my last was in Cartagena, Colombia. So international traveler for a bachelorette. And it was for a friend who's actually from Dominican Republic, where the wedding was. So back-to-back trips. Talk about the expenses and even just the travel for tying people away for work. A lot of people couldn't go. I have my own business, so I was able to, but in my late 20s, when all of, most of that, like Carrie, you said your daughter has a lot of those friends that you're in the wedding. That was kind of in my late 20s as well. And it was back to back. It was showers, it was trips, and it was, I couldn't go on them because I couldn't afford to go. And you have to pick and choose which ones. Now, as I'm older and I have obviously, more money to spend on these, it's become a vacation. So when also, Flora, you were asking about what, it's turned into this week-long trip. I just used it as my vacation for that year. But it was very, very expensive, especially with the amount of people that attend. If you have 5 versus 10, your pricing goes significantly higher, which is what happened with us in Cartagena. It was 10 girls down to 5.
Oh.
And we had a lot more to pay because it was a smaller group. But you have airfare, you have food, you have the lodging, especially if you want to stay in Airbnbs. We had a butler and a cook and a
Wait a minute.
Typical.
My honeymoon wasn't that nice. You have a butler.
Can you get engaged or something so we can do this? I don't know. This started to sound cool.
It is funny.
Okay.
But it is not abnormal in different countries where you can rent the Airbnb that comes with, because the groom actually went to Costa Rica with a group of guys that had a very similar situation. But it depends on who's planning the bachelorette or the bachelor party too. And the maid of honor typically does that.
How does it work when there are some girls who might not be able to afford to do it? Have you found that there's been some uncomfortable situations that have come up that they try to buffer the bride from? Because clearly she wants all of her girls there. Has that happened to you?
Absolutely. And it's unfortunate, but it actually becomes a little bit of if you're my friend or if you're not my friend, you would be there. And I've witnessed that sometimes, or you'd make the sacrifice, or you would borrow the money, or you would, just somehow get there. It becomes a little bit of, I feel, a lot of pressure, as you said. And it's also, it affected friendships. I feel that when people can't go and they can't afford it, and people don't understand that they, have other priorities than doing that, or families, it does become a little contentious with sometimes with the other friends, bridesmaids, and the bride itself. I have experienced that, which is unfortunate, and it shouldn't be that way.
That's a shame, because you start out as friends. I mean, you're a part of this because you're friends, and then they're acting like a crazy person and putting all these demands on you. I'm sure there's a lot of tension then that results in that. I was in Nashville recently, and there was a bachelorette party.
Oh, that's the land of bachelorettes.
And the bride had a T-shirt on with a barcode on it that said, scan the barcode and Venmo me money for drinks. Like, what is up with that? That's going on as well?
It is. And when you say Nashville, we call it Nash Vegas now, because it has become the bachelorette capital of the world, instead, or the country at least, instead of Vegas. But speaking of the Venmo, I have been in the wedding industry for a very long time professionally. And I've actually made some of those Venmo cards. I saw it, that somebody actually sent it to me, asked me to make it for them. And then when I posted it on my social media, the friends that had seen it actually asked me to do it. It's a Venmo card, basically the QR code to the Venmo. And it says, so-and-so's getting married, last Fling Before the Ring, bash, or, send a drink, send money for a drink. No lie, we did this for 2 of my friends that I went on, which is probably 2 years ago. I had never seen it. Being in the wedding industry, 10, 15 years ago, it didn't exist. So I hadn't seen it. And I think it's a little tacky myself.
Yeah.
But man, $400 came in for drinks for my friend on the Bachelorette. So I'm not condoning this, but
you're not totally against it either.
Some of the girls that couldn't go on the Bachelorette were primarily the ones that did donate. So, I shouldn't say donate. It sounds horrible because I'm the fundraising world that we're in. But some of the girls, maybe some of the boyfriends or family, they wanted them to have a good time. So it was a gift. And it's the world that we live in with social media and technology and just ways of ease of giving money. But so it's kind of a good and bad thing. I think when it's used in the way that it might be for family and friends to send, it's now having a shirt or the cards that, we made to pass out. It's a little, I think, much, but it's part of this whole shtick to get more money, to get more drinks, to get more wild, to have this crazy time that, and it's not everybody, but But it is quite interesting to see what comes in, I guess.
Yeah. So over the decade or so since you have seen all of this happen, do you feel that there was a point in which brides just sort of started wanting more, needing more? Where do you think this came from? Like, what is the purpose now of doing all of this pre-partying before the wedding?
Party.
Yeah.
What's the point? Party.
Why do you do it? And do you think that the pendulum might want to swing back to simpler time?
Yeah, I mean, I think it depends on the personality of the bride as well and the friend group, because I do have some that just went, like Flora said, for one night locally. They had dinner. There is definitely a difference between people's interests and personalities. I really, when I was younger, I heard more about these crazy bachelor parties, and you heard the movie The Hangover.
Yes.
When they went and, got wild and crazy. It wasn't about the Bachelorette. I mean, there's movies about it, and bridesmaids and whatnot. But yeah, I think that it might have just taken this turn to have focus on the bride. I feel like even more than the bride already has, it gets all of the attention. It's about her day. Right. And I interesting that being in the wedding industry too, with invitations and seeing a lot that happens, it definitely is something that has, I feel like, made it more of that bridezilla type, and the pressure, and just something that I don't want to say that it might go to your head, but it takes the focus off of the wedding itself, which we all know is really the marriage. So we really shouldn't even be focusing on the wedding the day of, which a lot of brides do because they've dreamt of this beautiful wedding day. So it's now then this over the top shower, and then this bachelorette. But I almost feel like it's social media a little bit, showing this competition and having to have the picture, the Instagram,
Instagrammable,
Instagrammable, having the pictures, which it's like we're not enjoying even the experience sometimes, because people just want to have the pictures to show that they went there and they did it.
It's crazy, Melissa, but I love that you have both perspectives, because you have been a bride, you have been in all of these weddings and taken on going all of these places, and you're in the wedding industry. So thank you so much for sharing why we have bridezillas right now and what's really going on. Very enlightening.
And if we could ask you one last question, Melissa, you have clearly spent tens of thousands of dollars. Quickly, what's your advice for these women to prevent them from turning into bridezillas? What's your last bit of advice?
I would definitely say just focus on, your friends and the women that are in your life right now, and the ones that you want to stay in your future and build a future with your partner through your marriage. It is a lot of money. It's very costly. And I have experience that I'm actually seasons of my life no longer friends with some of the women that I was in my 20s. And, as I go into my 40s here, so it is something that, while it's a great time to be had in the moment, it's definitely things that you want to look back and say that you really feel good about the decisions that you made, the money that you spent, the trips that you went on, the friendships that you had, and really focus on the friendships. I think just like the marriage as well, versus all of the events and things, that you're spending money on.
And that was very well said. Thanks, Melissa. Thanks for coming on the podcast.
Thank you.
I like what she said. They're so focused on the pre-party and the party and the bachelorette and Focus on the marriage, girls.
And focus on the friendships who are there to help you with your marriage. So it was enlightening. I'm exhausted, and I feel like my pocketbook has just been destroyed just by thinking about it.
Gone wild.
My goodness. We appreciate you being with us today. Do us a favor. Head over to our YouTube channel. Like and subscribe until we are back to chirp about another topic.